welcome back to Pierogi by Kelly. Today I'll be teaching you how to make sauerkraut filling. This is a special family recipe I got from my Babcia. Sauerkraut is one of the most traditional and popular pierogi fillings. As it is a meatless filling, it is also often served throughout Lent and on Christmas Eve during these times of fast within Polish culture in which they refrain from eating meat. Sauerkraut is a type of fermented cabbage which has similar health benefits to that of kimchi. Sauerkraut's name perfectly describes its taste, as it translates directly to sour cabbage. This is a special recipe from my Babcia, but as my dad always says, cooking is an art, so feel free to add your own seasons and spices. Now let's begin. Here we have 32 ounces of sauerkraut, which has already been rinsed, pressed, and dried. And you want to make sure to really get it as dry as you can because you don't want it super liquidy when we're cooking it or putting it in as the filling. 1 large onion, about 4 ounces of mushrooms, 2 tablespoons of butter, as well as some extra butter, which will be added in to the pan with the sauerkraut. First, we're going to finely chop the onion. Here I have my onion, and I'm just going to chop it. If you find that your eyes are very sensitive to onions, you can use a food processor. Now that my onions are done, I'm just going to put these to the side. I have my mushrooms, and I'm just going to put these onto the cutting board. And these are already washed, so make sure to wash them beforehand. And mushrooms are a strange texture, in my opinion, and they're very soft, so they're pretty simple to cut. But if you would like to speed the process up, or just would prefer to, you can use a food processor. And while I'm just finishing up here, one of the things I would recommend with the mushrooms is buying the pre-sliced ones, and that just makes it a lot easier to chop them up. Now I'm just going to grab my 2 tablespoons of butter and put it into this pan, which is low heat. So now that my butter is melted completely, I'm going to grab my onions and my mushrooms and put them into the pan. And we're just going to be sauteing both the onions and the mushrooms together. I'm going to use a wooden spoon to just mix them up. Okay, so now that they're both in here and combined, I'm just going to put it onto a medium heat, and I'm going to let these saute for 5 minutes. So as you can see, it's kind of turned into like a mush. And there's my timer. So this is sauteed for 5 minutes. And now I'm just going to take my sauerkraut and dump all of that in as well. And I'm going to put 2 more tablespoons of butter in. However, feel free to add as much or as little as you would like. I'm going to mix this sauerkraut with the mushrooms and onions to try to make sure that everything's evenly distributed and combined. Sauerkraut is very significant in the Polish culture and community. They not only use it as a pierogi filling, but it is also something to dip pierogi in. Another thing people often like to dip their pierogi in, my dad in particular, they love to dip pierogi in horseradish. This looks and smells about ready. It's all evenly mixed, and you can tell when it's ready when you can really smell the sauerkraut. While this is cooling, I'm going to prepare my pierogi dough to be filled with the sauerkraut filling. And if you're interested in making dough or looking more for that, I would go check out my video that's linked in the description about how to make the dough and that process. Okay, so now it's time for me to fill my pierogi. So for the sauerkraut filling, I'm going to be using 1 teaspoon to fill the pierogi. And I'm just going to take a teaspoon of that and put it in the center of each of my discs. Okay, so now that each of them have filling in them, I'm just going to take some water around the edge and crimp and press it together. Sauerkraut is one of the more challenging fillings just because it takes a lot of technique to be able to actually fill the pierogi while keeping the sauerkraut in the pierogi. And it was one of the last ones my Babcia recommended that I try. And it has taken some work to get the technique down. I'm now done filling all of my pierogi. If you're done filling your pierogi and you have leftover filling, you can put the sauerkraut just in some type of Tupperware container and put it into the fridge. It'll last in the fridge for about 2 to 3 days. So if you're planning on making more pierogi soon, or if you're planning on dipping a different type of pierogi in sauerkraut, you can keep it in the fridge for a few days. I am going to boil these and prepare them to eat by sauteing them in a little bit of butter. If you're interested in more in the cooking process and preparing them to eat, check out my first video, which is linked in the description. I have prepared my pierogi to eat, and now let's cut into one. Okay, now let's try one. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck pierogi making.